Good morning. Appreciate you guys having me today. A plug for Heritage Christian Academy. That's where my daughter goes, so Blair, glad that you were here. As Odie mentioned, I'm a resident of South Carolina, grew up here and stuck around. I've got a bit of a unique perspective as it relates to the whole SCANA Dominion merger, in that I was previously a SCANA employee, where I worked for a number of years, and then I've been with Dominion Energy since 2015. So just a show of hands, how many people before today had heard of Dominion Energy? Most of you, I kind of figured that. How many have heard of Dominion Energy or were familiar with Dominion prior to January of this year when the merger was announced? Okay, so still a good many of you. And then finally, how many of you knew that Dominion had actually been active in the state, operating since 2015? A few less, but still some. Well, good. So as Odie mentioned, I'm an employee on the natural gas side of the house. So I've got a background with SCANA, both on their FERC-regulated interstate gas transmission, and then on the Dominion side. Dominion purchased us from SCANA back in 2015, so I've seen both sides. So I just want to give you kind of a brief overview of Dominion from a corporate perspective, and then talk a little bit about the merger, and I want to leave time for questions. I'm sure there are some. So Dominion corporate, a broad perspective here. Dominion is a very large energy company, probably the fourth or fifth largest in the country. We have operations in 19 states, spanning from the East Coast all the way out to California. We've got about 16,000 employees and serve 6 million customers across the country. We have a broad portfolio, both from an electric generation perspective. We've got over 26,000 megawatts of electric generation on our power side, and tens of thousands of miles of natural gas transmission and distribution facilities. So again, a big company. So I get asked all the time, why is Dominion interested in South Carolina? Why are you getting involved in this mess with the nuclear debacle? And it's really a long-term investment. Dominion is very big on South Carolina. You look at the growth within the state, both from an economic development perspective and population growth, and Dominion really views this as a long-term play. So we have pushed the numbers on the merger really hard, and that's just a reflection of how big and confident that Dominion is on South Carolina. So back in January, when the merger was first announced, the proposal that we put out involved a $1.3 billion of cash that we set aside to go to customer refunds, which would equate to about $1,000 for the average residential customer. In addition to that, there was another $1.7 billion of cash that's been spent on the nuclear project, which has not been entered into rates. Dominion agreed to write that off, so there would never be another dollar related to the nuclear project added to customer rates. We have committed to keeping SCE&G headquartered in Casey. So it will operate as an independent entity. It'll have a president that is local, that lives in this area, that runs that company. We've provided assurances to SCANA employees that will make sure that they are compensated at least through June of 2020. And so kind of where we are in the process, we have gotten the Hart-Scott-Rodino antitrust approval. We've gotten the Public Service Commission in Georgia's approval. the nuclear regulatory approval, the North Carolina Public Service Commission approval, and we are waiting on the last one that we need to get is the South Carolina Public Service Commission. So the hearing on that was last month, and it ended at the beginning of this month. And they are currently evaluating the proposal, and we expect to hear something pretty soon on that. So they have to decide whether to approve the merger and then set the permanent rates. So most of you probably know that the legislature came back for a special session and passed an experimental rate, which went into effect, I believe, in June or July, but it was retroactive back to April. So you probably noticed, for those of you who are SCNG residential customers, that your bill in August is probably much less. That experimental rate was about a 15% rate reduction. As part of our original plan, we had the $1.3 billion of cash, but we also had a 7% rate reduction associated with that, and then a shortening of the payback time from 60 years, which was the original life of the nuclear project, down to 20 years. So the legislature passed the experimental rate with 15%. So during the Public Service Commission hearings, we were approached by the business community along with the state and asked to provide an alternate proposal which provided a deeper rate cut than the 7% we had initially offered in lieu of the cash payments, to see what that would look like. And so we submitted that to the Public Service Commission while those hearings were going on. And so there is an alternate proposal that we've proffered, which provides even a deeper rate cut than the experimental rate, which is currently in place. So it's actually slightly more beneficial to customers than even the rates that are in place right now. And then on the last day of the hearings, one of the commissioners asked us to develop 3 additional plans, which would be a blended approach, which would have a 25% refund and a 75% of that rate reduction, a 50-50 split, and then a 75% refund and 25% rate reduction relative to the plans that we had submitted. We have submitted those. So the commission has about 5 different proposals that they are currently evaluating. They could elect to do something completely different. We don't know, but we have been responsive to them. So we are hopeful that the merger will be approved, and if it does, then we hope to close the merger by the end of the year. And so if the merger closes, then either by the end of the year, 1st of next year, we're getting kind of late in 2018, so it may be the 1st of next year before it closes. If there is a refund associated with it, then those will be issued within 90 days of the merger closing. A little bit more about Dominion as it relates to the business community. Part of my job is business development, so I do work very closely with both with local business and industries in South Carolina, as well as economic development. Dominion is very committed to being a strong business partner. I know that SCANA has a history in the community, both from supporting economic development activities as well as philanthropic commitments to the community. My experience with Dominion has been that has only increased. So we were doing well from a business development perspective under SCANA. That has continued and even increased under Dominion. And SCANA also invests about $5 million a year into the communities that they serve through sponsorships and grants. we have committed to increasing that giving by at least $1 million a year for at least 5 years. So the involvement in the community and the good corporate citizen that SCANA has been over the years will continue. And then finally, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on the project itself. We get asked all the time, why did SCANA even decide to go nuclear in the first place? And if you rewind back into the mid-2000s, you had the environment that we were in was vastly different. SCANA, along with Santee Cooper, needed new power generation to serve the growing needs of the state. You had an administration who was cracking down on carbon legislation and really wanted to get new nuclear built in the country. So there were federal incentives to build new nuclear. If you look at alternate fuels and alternate sources of power generation at the time, natural gas prices were in the $12 to $15 range, and they were very volatile because hurricanes Katrina and Rita had just come through the Gulf and disrupted a lot of that supply. Coal was kind of being cracked down on from an emissions perspective, and so there was an opportunity to build a new non-emitting source of electric generation to meet those future needs. SCANA and Santee Cooper didn't have the balance sheet to undertake that in and of themselves, which is why the Baseload Review Act was passed originally, because when SCANA built the first unit out at BC Summer, they had to have the huge capital expenditure to get that built, and then it all got added into rates when it started producing electricity. So rates went up like 30% when that unit came online. So the Baseload Review Act, in theory, would allow them to recover the financing costs as they went along instead of having that huge capital expenditure, which they would not have been able to undertake, and without having to have the huge rate increase at the end. Obviously, things changed after that, and there's a lot of ink that's been spilled about the management of that project and the things that transpired. I'm not going to get into all of that. It is what it is, and we are where we are. But our hope is that we can provide a clear path forward and provide stability to this issue, because it really has been a black cloud that has been hovering over the state, and it's impacting investment in the state, because companies looking to build in the state want to know if they're a heavy energy user, they want to know who is my provider and what's my rate going to be. And there's been great uncertainty around that. So we are hopeful that the merger will go through and that we can be a solution to that. Another question that I get asked all the time is, are you guys going to finish the project? And you never say never, but we do not have any plans to complete the project, and I'll tell you why. The project was originally meant to, it would produce 2,200 megawatts of electricity. The initial cost on it was going to be $9.2 billion. That number had jumped to 10.5, then to 13. So at the time that SCANA negotiated the fixed cost contract with Westinghouse, it had gone to $13 billion to finish. That fixed cost contract ended up bankrupting Westinghouse because they could not build it for that. At that time, SCANA and Santee Cooper did independent evaluations of what it would cost to complete the project. Santee Cooper's estimates were $25 billion total project cost to finish, which was the reason that they pulled out. So looking at where we are now relative to the mid-2000s when this was initially going on, the federal tax incentives are set to expire in 2021 or 2022, I believe. And in addition, a lot of the in the Northeast that is now flowing south has levelized gas prices at a very low number and provided stability there. And so, so just to give you an example, kind of order of magnitude, we are constructing a natural gas-fired generating facility in Virginia, which will produce 1,200 megawatts of electricity, and the capital expenditure on that project was $1.3 billion. So looking at a $25 billion project versus a 1.3, the economics just don't work out to continue to move forward on that project as we sit today. There could be things that change that, but as we sit here today, it doesn't make financial sense to continue. There are parts of that project which are still useful, and they've built switch yards and transmission poles. You've probably seen them all around the state, the big metal poles that they've been building. Those facilities are still useful, so those will still provide benefit, but as far as the actual generation of the nuclear project, so anyway, that is kind of where we are. I did want to leave time for questions, because I'm sure you guys probably have some, and again, appreciate you being here. Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you so much for this morning explaining this. I think it's very helpful to us. Being in the energy sector, I wanted to find out, since we're not looking at a nuclear project right now, what are some other alternatives that you may be looking at in the future that you may be aware of that you have to say as well when it comes to cost and infrastructure?
Yeah. So we don't feel like you should tie your power generation to one single source. So we have a broad portfolio of generation. We have solar, we have hydro, we have a nuclear fleet, we have natural gas. In fact, we actually we have spent $750 million in the state since 2015. And in January of this year, we actually put into service the largest solar farm in the state down in Jasper County. There are two sites down there which are producing 81 megawatts of solar power. That power is being purchased by SCE&G, and then the solar tax credits were sold as well, but we were the owner-operator of those. So we will continue to pursue all forms of power generation. We're not married to any one source.
Do you feel that's going to expand? Because right now the actual solar capacity is at 2% as far as the net meter capacity. And that's going to shut down sometime soon. So do you feel that it may be expanding from the portfolio of Dominion?
As I understand it, and I'm not a solar expert, but as I understand it, we're kind of at the limit as the law allows right now. But if there's a switch in the law, then we'd certainly be supportive of whatever the law says. Anyone else? All right. Well, thanks again, and appreciate you guys having me.